I stood in the cold rain, watching movers carry expensive furniture into my sister Betty's brand new mansion. It was a wedding gift from our parents, a $3.5 million house in one of the richest neighborhoods in Seattle. I couldn't help but feel small as I stood there, soaked from head to toe. My own home was a tiny apartment above the bookstore where I worked, and I could barely pay rent each month. "This is just perfect for them," my mom said excitedly, not even noticing how wet I was. "Betty and Paul will be so happy here. And just think, there's plenty of space for grandchildren." She smiled brightly, completely ignoring me. I forced myself to smile too, even though it hurt. I thought of the cheap congratulations card I had bought after digging through my change. "It's beautiful, Mom," I said, trying to sound happy. Betty walked out of the house looking like she had stepped out of a magazine. She wore stylish designer clothes, and her big shiny engagement ring caught the little bit of sunlight peeking through the clouds. "Margaret, you finally made it," she called out, using my full name like it was a surprise. I even showed up. "What do you think of our little starter home?" Starter home? As if a mansion that cost nearly $4 million was just their beginning. "It's lovely," I said quietly. "A perfect wedding present." Betty laughed and gave me a look. "Oh, don't be jealous, Margarita," she said, using the nickname I couldn't stand. "I'm sure you'll find someone special too. Maybe one of those nice guys at the bookstore." Then my mom joined in. "You know, the Thomas boy is still single. He's an accountant now, very stable job." I bit my tongue and said nothing. I was 33 years old, with a master's degree in literature, and I was writing my first novel. But to them, none of that mattered. To them, I was the one who failed, the daughter who picked dreams instead of money, books instead of business. "I should go," I mumbled. "My shift starts soon." On a Thursday, my mom frowned. Betty rolled her eyes. "Still so dramatic, Margarita. This is why you struggle. You always pick the hard road instead of letting people help you." Help. That's what they called it. But their help always came with conditions, things I had to give up, things I didn't want. I had said no to a full scholarship to business school. I had turned down a job offer at Dad's firm. I had ignored the blind dates they set up with men they called suitable. They never understood that their kind of help was just control with a smile. It was like wearing golden handcuffs. I looked toward the bookstore across town, my little world, my quiet space. "They're short-staffed today," I said. Then I turned and walked away, the rain still falling, but my heart just a little lighter. I already said goodbye. I told my mom as I turned to leave. "And I really need to work hours." "At least take some leftovers home," she said, sounding worried. "I hate thinking about you eating alone in that tiny apartment." I didn't say anything back. I didn't tell her that my small apartment was actually my safe space, my own little world filled with books, paintings, and quiet. It was the only place I could think clearly. A place where I could write without anyone judging me. A place where I could dream without limits. The next morning, I stopped at Tyler's corner store like I always did for my usual cup of coffee. Tyler was like a grandpa to me. He'd been running that shop for over 50 years. But today, he looked more excited than usual. "Margaret, did you check your lottery ticket yet?" he asked, eyes wide. I blinked, confused. Then I remembered. 3 days ago, I had spent my last $6 on a lottery ticket. It was a silly impulse. The jackpot had hit a record high, and I just thought, why not? "Not yet," I said, pulling the crumpled ticket from my wallet. "What were the winning numbers?" Tyler's eyes sparkled as he leaned closer. "Check the news, sweetheart." I pulled out my phone and opened the lottery website. My heart pounded as the numbers popped up on the screen. 9, 16, 25, 33, 45, 54, 65. I looked at my ticket. Then I looked at the screen again. My hands started to shake. "Tyler," I whispered, barely able to speak, "I think I won." He gave me a huge grin. "I know you did, honey. I watched the drawing live last night. All 7 numbers matched. You just won $100 million. The world around me started to spin. I held onto the counter to steady myself. "Sit down before you fall down," Tyler said, helping me into a chair. "Take deep breaths. This is huge. But you have to be smart now. Don't tell anyone yet. Get a lawyer first. And for heaven's sake, sign the back of that ticket. With shaking hands, I signed the back of the lottery ticket. My name looked messy, but it was there. Tyler took the ticket and locked it safely in his store's backroom safe. He gave me a glass of water and told me to drink it. Then he called his daughter, Emily, a respected financial attorney. She'll meet you in an hour, Tyler said. She'll help you handle everything the right way. I nodded slowly, still in shock. Tyler, what about my family? I asked quietly. He gently squeezed my shoulder and said, We'll deal with that later. Right now, this is your moment. Don't let anyone take it from you. And in that moment, I knew everything had changed. I sat waiting for Emily when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my sister, Betty. Family brunch tomorrow to talk about the wedding. Wear something nice for once. And don't be late like always. I stared at her message, thinking about her big mansion, her perfect life, and how her parents always praised her. For the past 18 years, I had been treated like the one who didn't fit in, the daughter they thought was a failure. They saw me as someone who didn't make good choices, someone who was always chasing silly dreams. But now, everything was different. I had $100 million, and I finally had a chance to show them they were wrong. I typed back, Sorry, I can't make it. I have something more important to do. For once, I wasn't lying. For weeks later, I sat in Emily's office, signing the last papers to officially claim my lottery prize. Emily, who is Tyler's daughter, had helped me every step of the way. She helped me set up bank accounts, trusts, and strong privacy rules so my name would stay protected. Just remember, Emily said, looking over the documents. Once we send this in, your name will be in the news. Are you ready for that? I thought about the things I'd already done. I had quietly quit my job at the bookstore and left a big check to my manager so she could hire and train someone new. I bought a lovely but simple house in a peaceful neighborhood and used a trust to keep my name off any public documents. I even started building my own publishing company to help writers like me, people who were often ignored, share their stories. I'm ready, I told her with confidence. The next morning, my name and face were everywhere. The news in Seattle shouted the story. Local woman wins $100 million lottery. Bookstore worker becomes rich overnight. Margaret Smith claims record jackpot. My phone lit up nonstop. Old classmates, distant relatives, and people I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly texting me. But the messages I had expected the most came last. Betty wrote, OMG Margarita. Why didn't you tell us? Call me now. Then my mom. Margaret Elizabeth Smith. How could you keep this from your family? We're coming over right now. Where do you live? Finally, Dad. Your mother is freaking out. Call us this second. I looked at my phone, then turned it off. I made myself a cup of tea and sat down in my new home office. Through the window, I could see the garden where I planned to build a little reading corner. The morning sun made everything glow with a soft golden light. It felt peaceful. It felt like a fresh start. The doorbell rang. I glanced at the screen connected to my new security camera, one of Emily's smart ideas. I saw them standing on my porch, my parents and Betty. Betty looked like she was ready for a magazine photo shoot, and my mom kept fixing her expensive dress like she was nervous. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Margaret, my mom said right away, we've been so worried. Why haven't you answered our calls? And how could you afford this house? You haven't even gotten the lottery money yet. Hello, Mother, I said calmly. Would you like to come in? They stepped inside and looked around the living room. I could tell they were surprised by how nice it was. The clean furniture, the full bookshelves, everything in its place. Betty ran her finger along one of the shelves and said, Well, now you can finally move to a better area. There's a beautiful house near mine for sale. It's only $5 million. I'm happy here, I said, cutting her off. But thank you for the suggestion. Margarita, darling, my mom said sweetly, leaning closer. You have to understand, this is a lot of money. It will change your life. You'll need help managing it. Your father knows some great money experts. I already have a team of advisors, I replied. And it's Margaret, not Margarita. Betty's smile dropped. Don't be so difficult, she snapped. We're only trying to help. You've never been good with money. Remember when I loaned you $20,000 for your small business? You mean the money you never paid back? I asked quietly. Betty's face turned red. That was different. I needed it. What you needed, I said, standing up, was to take responsibility. Something none of you have ever expected from her. My dad finally spoke. His face was red with anger. We've always treated both of you the same. I actually laughed. Equally? You bought Betty a mansion for her wedding. You paid for her business school, her first car, her dream wedding. What did I get for graduation? A speech about how my dreams weren't realistic. We were just worried about your future, my mom said. You were always chasing big ideas. We only wanted what was best. No, I said. You wanted me to be like Betty, the perfect daughter, the one who followed the rules. But guess what? My so-called bad choices led me here. Working at the bookstore, the job you all look down on, that's where I bought the winning ticket. Betty smiled again like she was doing me a favor. Well, now you can finally live properly. We can help you invest, introduce you to the right people. No, I said firmly. The room went silent. What do you mean no? My dad asked, confused. I walked over to my desk and pulled out 4 envelopes. Betty, I said, handing her one. This is a check for $120,000, paying you back for that loan you love to bring up. I gave Betty the first envelope. Then I turned to my parents and handed them the second one. Mom, Dad, I said, this check is for $25,000. That's the total amount of every gift, payment, and help you've ever given me. I kept track of everything. They looked at the envelopes, stunned and silent. The third envelope, I continued, has papers that show I've already started my own publishing company, created a charity to help kids read, and invested my money with one of the best companies in the country. I looked them in the eyes. I didn't need your help back then, and I definitely don't need it now. But we're family, my mom said quietly. Yes, we are, I replied. And family should love without conditions. They should support your dreams, not crush them. They should accept who you are, not try to change you. I walked to the front door and opened it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my foundation. We're discussing how to build new libraries in communities that really need them. My father stood stiffly. You're making a mistake. You need us. I smiled, feeling free for the first time in years. No, Dad. You need me. And that's why you're really here, isn't it? Betty stood up, her face full of anger. So now you think you're better than us just because you won the lottery? No, Betty, I said calmly. I was always enough. You just never saw it. As they turned to leave, my mother looked back at me with tears in her eyes. Margaret, please, she said softly. We were wrong. We see that now. Can't we start over? I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, I saw how small and lost they all looked. They were stuck in their old way of thinking about success and value. Maybe someday, I said gently, but not today. I closed the door as they began to protest. Then I walked back to my office. On my desk sat the manuscript of my novel, a story about a girl who finds her voice in a world that tries to keep her quiet. It was time to start writing the next chapter of my life. 7 months later, the launch party for Smith Publishing House was everything I had dreamed. We turned an old warehouse into a warm, creative space full of books, art, and hope. Local authors we had signed chatted with book agents and reporters. Kids from our reading program proudly showed off their own stories in a special area we had made just for them. Tyler stood next to me, smiling like a proud grandfather. Look at what you've built, Margaret, he said. And you didn't waste a single penny showing off. He was right. I could have bought a big, shiny office downtown. But instead, I fixed up this old building and made it feel like home, a place for writers and readers to belong. I had used the lottery money to support education, help new writers, and build something that truly mattered.
Just then my phone buzzed.
A text from Betty. Saw your company in the business journal. Must be nice having everything handed to you.
Paul lost his job.
We could use some family help right now. I deleted the message without replying. For months, they had tried everything: guilt, fake kindness, and then demands. Betty said her mansion was now too small. Mom and Dad said they needed money to renew their country club membership. Paul had lost money on bad investments and wanted help. I ignored all of it. Miss Smith, a small voice said, tugging my sleeve. It was Laura, one of the sweet girls from our reading program. She was holding a notebook close to her chest. Will you read my story? She asked softly. Of course, Laura, I said with a smile. I led her to a quiet corner and sat beside her. What's your story about? It's about a girl who finds a magic pen, Laura said shyly. Everything she writes comes true, but she has to figure out what's really important to write about. I smiled again. Sometimes the biggest wisdom comes from the smallest voices.
Margaret.
I looked up. My mother was standing there. She looked out of place. Her fancy look had faded. She wasn't as polished as usual. I could see the stress in her face. The past few months hadn't been easy for them. My dad's business had lost big clients. Betty's perfect marriage was starting to break apart. Their rich friends had begun pulling away as their money problems grew. Mom, this is a private event, I said gently. I know, she replied, but I need to talk to you. She glanced at Laura. Alone. I turned to Laura. Why don't you show your story to Miss Carroll? She's our children's book editor. Once Laura ran off, I turned to my mom. Dad's company is failing, she said quickly. Betty's house is being taken by the bank. Everything's falling apart. And you're here playing with children's stories? I stood up. My anger rose. Playing? I said. Look around, Mom. Really look. These kids are learning to love reading. They're finding their voices. These writers are getting chances they never had before. I'm not playing. I'm building something real. But your family, she started, has never respected my choices. I cut in. Even now, you're not here to support me. You're here because you want money. She flinched. We're still your family, she whispered. Are you? I asked. I walked her over to the wall in our center. It was filled with pictures, kids reading, authors signing books, events that changed lives. Family cheers for your wins. Family supports your dreams, I said. When was the last time you asked about my novel? Or how I was doing? Or if I was happy? I don't know, she said quietly. I looked her in the eyes. Winning the lottery didn't change who I am. It gave me the freedom to stop needing approval I never got. Tears filled her eyes. We were wrong. I see that now. Can't you forgive us? Forgiveness isn't the problem, I said softly. I forgave you months ago. That's why I'm not angry anymore. But forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them keep hurting you. She looked lost. So, what do you want from us? Nothing, I said. And that's exactly the point. I don't need anything from you anymore, I said calmly. And until you truly want a relationship with me that isn't about money, status, or your idea of success, we have nothing to talk about. Just then, I heard noise near the entrance. I turned and saw Betty walking in, followed by Mom, Dad, and Paul. I sighed. You all came here to corner me at my company's launch. I asked. We're desperate, Betty cried, her makeup smudged from tears. Paul lost everything in a bad investment. The bank is taking our house. Dad's company is falling apart. Please, Margarita, you have to help us. The room went quiet. Our guests pretended not to look, but I could feel all eyes on us. I looked at my family closely. Dad looked tired and weak, no longer full of pride. Betty's fancy clothes were wrinkled and worn. Mom looked torn between holding on to pride and asking for help. No, I said firmly. Dad's voice broke a little. Then what do you want from us? I'll give you something else instead, I said, taking out my phone. I showed them a picture. This is Kenneth Financial Services. They're looking for experienced people with good community ties. Dad, they agreed to interview you for a senior job. It's not a guarantee, but it's a real chance. I swiped to the next photo. Betty, the local arts center needs a fundraising coordinator. You're great at planning events and working with people. You'd be perfect for it. I looked at Paul. My friend owns a construction company. They need project managers. It's honest work and good pay. You want us to work for someone else? Betty asked, shocked. I want you to stand on your own like I did, I said. I want you to build something real. Find out who you are without borrowed money or fake titles. And if we say no, Dad asked. Then you'll figure something else out, I replied. But I won't give you money just so you can keep living a life that made us all miserable. Betty stepped forward, surprised. The art center, do they really think I'd be good at that? Yes, I nodded. Because you are good at it when you're being real, not pretending to be perfect. Betty wiped her tears, her expensive mascara smearing across her face. I don't know how to be anything else. You do, I said, taking her hand for the first time in months. You're smart. You're strong. Use those gifts for something that matters. Dad cleared his throat. The job interview, when is it? Tomorrow at 10, I said. And don't wear your Rolex. Show them your skills, not your pride. One by one, they nodded. They didn't look thankful, but maybe, just maybe, they understood. As they left, Mom paused and turned back. Your company, it's really amazing, Margaret. I'm sorry we never saw what you were trying to do. I know, I said softly. Maybe one day, you'll truly see me too. After they were gone, Tyler came over and stood beside me. You okay, kiddo? He asked. I looked around at my publishing house. I saw dreams coming to life, stories being shared, and lives being changed. You know what, Tyler? I said with a smile. I really am okay. Just then, Laura came running up, holding her notebook in the air. Miss Smith, she called out. Miss Carroll loved my story. She said maybe one day it could become a real book. I knelt down beside her. Do you want to know a secret, Laura? She nodded, eyes wide with excitement. Every real book starts with someone brave enough to tell their story, I said. Someone just like you. Just like all of us. Later that evening, I sat outside in the garden, in the little reading nook I had built. I was working on my own novel, the story I had been writing for years. It was quiet and peaceful. The sky was soft with stars. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Betty. I have an interview at the art center tomorrow. Any advice? I smiled and typed back. Be yourself. Your real self. Winning the lottery hadn't just given me millions of dollars. It had given me something much more important, the chance to show my family and myself what true success looks like. Not money, but the courage to be who I really am. And that, to me, was the greatest treasure of all.